The mansion was enormous, bigger than most people could even imagine. It had tall, white columns that seemed to touch the sky, with wide windows that let in streams of golden sunlight. Inside, the rooms were filled with expensive furniture, shiny marble floors, and sparkling chandeliers. The walls had paintings that looked like they had been made by famous artists, though only the millionaire really knew for sure. The house was quiet for the most part, except for the soft ticking of a huge antique clock and the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. The millionaire was sitting comfortably in a large leather chair, his legs crossed and his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. He had a reputation for being demanding, playful, and sometimes even a little mischievous. People said he was always looking for entertainment, and that he liked to challenge those around him in unusual ways. Tonight, he had a particular idea in mind. His new housekeeper had been working at the mansion for only a few days, and he had not yet had the chance to see her talents, or perhaps her limits. He looked toward the grand piano in the corner of the room, its polished black surface gleaming under the chandelier lights. He smiled, leaning back in his chair, and spoke in a playful voice, almost teasing. "Play the piano. I want to laugh." The words were simple, but the tone carried the weight of a challenge. Everyone in the room froze for a moment. The housekeeper, a quiet woman with calm eyes and steady hands, paused where she was standing. She didn't smile and she didn't frown. She simply nodded politely and moved toward the piano. She had arrived at the mansion just a few days ago. She had taken the job because it promised stability, and though the work was demanding, she had learned early in life how to handle responsibility. She had grown up in a small neighborhood where life was simple, and every day came with its own struggles. But she had also learned to love music. The piano had always been her escape. When she pressed the keys and let the notes flow, she felt free in a way that words could not describe. No one knew of her skill at the mansion. She had not mentioned it because she was not there to impress anyone. She was there to do her job. Yet, as she walked toward the piano now, she felt a familiar flutter in her chest. Not nervousness, but anticipation. She had a feeling this moment might be different. The millionaire watched her carefully. He had expected perhaps a clumsy attempt, maybe a few wrong notes, or even a hesitant start. He leaned forward slightly, resting his chin on his hand, ready to enjoy the show. Some of the other staff lingered quietly in the background, curious about what would happen. The room seemed to hold its breath. The housekeeper sat down at the piano, her fingers hovering above the keys for a brief moment. Then, she pressed down and a soft, clear note filled the room. The sound was pure and unexpected. The millionaire raised his eyebrows in surprise but quickly composed himself, expecting the performance to falter soon. He waited, tapping his fingers impatiently on the armrest. She continued to play, but not the simple, silly tune he had imagined. Instead, she began a melody that was gentle at first, almost like a whisper. It was slow, soft, and beautiful. Then, subtly, she added playful notes that made the tune dance and twist in ways that were clever and unexpected. The notes seemed to have a personality of their own, teasing and surprising, yet always elegant. Every time she played a light, mischievous note, it brought a small smile to the millionaire's face. He could feel himself laughing, not mockingly, but genuinely. The sound of the piano seemed to fill the entire room, wrapping around everyone like a warm blanket. The staff who had been standing quietly could hardly believe their eyes and ears. This was not the clumsy performance they had anticipated. It was art. The housekeeper moved her hands with confidence and grace, each finger pressing the keys with precision. Yet every note carried a human touch that made it feel alive. There was humor in the way she played, but it was clever humor, not silly or forced. It made the millionaire chuckle again, louder this time, and he leaned back, shaking his head in amazement. The room seemed to transform. The heavy air of expectation, the quiet whispers, and the subtle tension melted away. Everyone felt it, even the silent walls of the mansion. The music had a way of speaking directly to the heart. It was a reminder that talent could appear in the most unexpected places. The millionaire, who had thought he was the one in control, was now completely captivated by the skill and the presence of the housekeeper. He had been ready to laugh at her, but instead, he found himself laughing with her, enjoying something far more delightful than he had imagined. As she continued to play, the housekeeper's eyes were calm, focused on the keys, but there was a spark of joy in her performance. She wasn't performing for praise or recognition. She was sharing a part of herself, a piece of the life she had lived and the love she had for music. Each note told a story, each chord carried emotion, and each playful twist in the melody made the millionaire forget the grandeur of his mansion and the power he usually wielded. For the first time in a long while, he was simply a listener, amazed and enchanted. When she finally lifted her hands from the keys, the room was silent for a moment. The notes lingered in the air, like a gentle echo that refused to fade. The millionaire opened his mouth, unsure what to say. The laughter that had come so easily before was replaced with a stunned silence. He looked at the housekeeper, who was sitting quietly, her hands folded gently in her lap, her face serene. She had done what he had not expected. She had surprised him, not with failure, but with brilliance. The housekeeper stood and gave a small, polite bow. The millionaire, still speechless, could only nod, a smile spreading slowly across his face. He realized something important in that moment. Talent, skill, and heart could come from anywhere. It could appear quietly, without fanfare, and yet leave a lasting impact that no wealth or status could ever match. That evening, in the grandeur of a huge mansion, a simple act of playing the piano had reminded everyone present that sometimes, the most remarkable things are hidden in the most unassuming people. The housekeeper returned to her duties, calm and unassuming, while the millionaire sat back, still reflecting on what he had witnessed. The laughter he had sought had come, but not in the way he expected. It was laughter filled with admiration and wonder, a genuine reaction to something beautiful and unexpected. The staff whispered quietly among themselves, sharing looks of amazement. The housekeeper had not only played the piano, she had created a moment that would be remembered in that mansion for a long time. The housekeeper had always been a quiet observer of life. She had grown up in a small, humble home where her parents worked tirelessly to provide for the family. There were never any grand luxuries, no sparkling chandeliers or polished marble floors. What she had instead were lessons in resilience, patience, and the beauty of small joys. Music had always been her escape, a secret world she could retreat into whenever life became too difficult. She had learned to play the piano on an old, worn instrument that had seen better days, but she had treated every note as precious. Her parents had been practical people. They believed in work, discipline, and responsibility. They encouraged her to help around the house, to study hard, and to always be ready to face challenges. Music, though appreciated, was never considered a career path. So she practiced in secret, playing whenever she could, letting the melody carry her away from chores, homework, and the weight of everyday life. Over the years, she developed a style that was uniquely her own. She didn't just play the notes, she told stories with them. She would take a simple melody and twist it, turn it, and layer it with emotion. Sometimes it was playful, sometimes wistful, sometimes humorous, and sometimes deeply moving. She didn't care if anyone was listening. For her, the music was a friend, a companion, and a teacher. When she was offered the position as a housekeeper at the millionaire's mansion, she did not think about impressing anyone. She thought about stability and the opportunity to live in a place that offered security. She had never imagined that her musical skills would become a part of her job, or that they would leave such a powerful impression on someone so rich and influential. The mansion was a world apart from her old neighborhood. The hallways were vast and echoing, the rooms filled with objects she had only ever seen in magazines or on television. Yet, despite the luxury surrounding her, she remained grounded. She worked quietly, moving from room to room, cleaning, organizing, and attending to the needs of the household. She noticed the small things, the way the curtains fell just right, the soft creak of a particular floorboard, or the scent of fresh flowers in a vase. On the day the millionaire had asked her to play the piano, she had been preparing the music room. She had arranged the sheet music neatly and polished the keys, ensuring that everything was ready, even though she did not know exactly what the millionaire expected. She had a calm confidence, born from years of quietly mastering her craft. As she approached the piano, she felt the familiar sense of excitement she always felt before performing. It was not nervousness. It was a readiness to connect with the music and, through it, with the people listening. She recalled the first time she had played in front of an audience. It was a small community recital when she was just a teenager. She had been nervous then, but as soon as her fingers touched the keys, everything else faded away. The music became a conversation, a story unfolding. She remembered the smiles and tears on the faces of those listening, and she realized that music could communicate in ways words never could. That memory gave her strength now as she sat before the grand piano in the mansion. Her hands hovered above the keys, and for a moment, she allowed herself to simply breathe and absorb the atmosphere. She noticed the millionaire watching her intently, his expectations visible in his posture and gaze. She could feel the tension in the room, but rather than being intimidated, she let it inspire her. She understood that the challenge was not just about playing the piano. It was about connecting, about reaching the person in the room through the notes. As her fingers pressed the first keys, the familiar warmth of the music flowed through her. The melody began softly, almost as if whispering a story to the walls. She added subtle variations, playful twists that made the notes dance in unexpected ways. Each chord was deliberate, each pause thoughtful. She was aware of the millionaire's reactions, the slight raising of an eyebrow, the small smile that appeared at the corner of his mouth. Yet she did not play for his amusement. She played because it was the truest expression of herself she could offer in that moment. The staff watched in quiet awe, having anticipated something much simpler or perhaps even awkward. Instead, they witnessed a performance that was nuanced, full of character, and emotionally engaging. The housekeeper's music was alive, each note carrying a sense of humor, grace, and depth that captivated the room. It was a delicate balance, playing something that could make someone laugh, while also evoking genuine admiration and respect. The millionaire, known for his playful and sometimes demanding nature, found himself completely captivated. He had expected to entertain himself at her expense, to watch someone fumble or make mistakes. Instead, he was laughing not at her, but with her, caught in the charm of the music and the talent behind it. The notes seemed to reach him in a way that no wealth, status, or control could. He realized that this moment was special, and that he had underestimated the housekeeper entirely. The housekeeper continued her performance, seamlessly moving from gentle melodies to playful bursts of sound, from subtle humor to moments of tender emotion. It was clear that she had an innate understanding of how to communicate through music. Her fingers moved confidently across the keys, each touch precise yet filled with feeling. The room seemed to change with every note, the atmosphere shifting from curiosity and expectation to awe and admiration. When she finally finished, the room was silent for a heartbeat. The echoes of the piano lingered, carrying the story she had just told. The millionaire, still seated, looked at her with a mixture of surprise, admiration, and respect. He had come expecting amusement, but he had received something far more meaningful. The housekeeper had shared a part of herself, a piece of her life and her passion, and it had touched everyone present. The housekeeper's calm demeanor returned as she stood from the piano. She did not seek praise, but it came nonetheless. The millionaire's smile widened, genuine and appreciative. He had been reminded, in the simplest yet most profound way, that talent and heart could appear in the most unexpected places. The staff exchanged quiet glances, recognizing that they had witnessed something remarkable. As she returned to her duties, the housekeeper felt a quiet satisfaction. She had done what she loved, in her own way, and had connected with others through her music. It was a reminder that no matter where life took her, her skills and her passion would always speak for themselves. That evening, the mansion, usually filled with quiet efficiency and the hum of routine, had been transformed by music, laughter, and a simple, extraordinary talent. The anticipation in the mansion grew stronger with each passing moment. After the housekeeper had been asked to play the piano, whispers floated through the halls like a soft breeze. The staff exchanged quiet glances, curiosity sparkling in their eyes. Some had seen hints of her quiet confidence during her first days at the mansion, but they had never imagined it could lead to something so extraordinary. Everyone wondered how she would respond to the millionaire's challenge, whether she would falter or rise to the occasion. The millionaire settled back into his chair, tapping his fingers on the armrest in a rhythm of excitement and impatience. He had faced many situations in his life where people tried to impress him, but few had ever left a lasting impression. Tonight, he thought, might be different, or so he hoped. The piano sat in the corner of the grand living room, its polished black surface gleaming, reflecting the crystal chandeliers above. The housekeeper approached it with calm steps, each footfall barely making a sound on the marble floor. She moved with quiet confidence, aware of the eyes watching her, but her focus was inward, on the music she loved. As she reached the piano, she paused for a brief moment. Her fingers hovered above the keys, as though testing the air, feeling the energy in the room. Then, she pressed down, and a single note resonated, clear and pure. The sound filled the room, soft at first, like the beginning of a story. The millionaire leaned forward slightly, intrigued, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. He had expected hesitation or uncertainty, but what he heard was something different entirely. There was skill in the note, but also a subtle warmth, a human touch that made it feel alive. The housekeeper began to play, slowly at first, letting the melody settle and grow. She added delicate touches, playful hints that made the tune dance in unexpected ways. Each note was intentional, each chord carefully chosen. She didn't rush, nor did she falter. Instead, she let the music flow naturally, as if the room itself were part of the composition. The millionaire's expression shifted from curiosity to genuine surprise, a small smile forming as he realized that the performance was not only competent but enchanting. The staff, who had been observing quietly, leaned in slightly, drawn to the music. The housekeeper's style was unlike anything they had expected. It was not showy or extravagant, but subtle and captivating. She had a way of blending gentle humor with deep emotion, and the melody seemed to speak directly to each listener. The notes carried stories of joy and struggle, of hope and resilience, and the room seemed to vibrate with the energy of her experiences. The millionaire chuckled softly at one particularly clever twist in the melody. He had expected a performance that would make him laugh at her attempts, not with her. Yet here he was, laughing genuinely, caught in the charm and wit of her music. Each playful note seemed to tease him, drawing a smile, then a chuckle, then laughter that was entirely unexpected. He had been prepared to enjoy a simple amusement, but what he received was a delightful surprise that left him feeling alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. The housekeeper continued, her fingers moving gracefully across the keys, weaving a tapestry of sound that filled every corner of the room. She added subtle changes in tempo, light pauses that made the melody feel alive, almost like a conversation. The millionaire watched intently, realizing that this was not mere talent. It was artistry. She was not just playing notes. She was telling a story, engaging everyone in the room in a shared experience that transcended words. The staff exchanged looks, impressed by the control, skill, and emotion the housekeeper displayed. As the music progressed, the millionaire noticed something he hadn't expected. He was learning from it. The way she played, the confidence she displayed, and the joy she expressed reminded him of the beauty in simplicity and the importance of genuine expression. He realized that wealth and status could buy many things, but they could not create the connection that music or true talent could. For the first time in a long while, he felt humbled, witnessing a moment where someone less privileged had the power to teach him something profound. The housekeeper's performance was both playful and sincere. She introduced light-hearted riffs that made the millionaire laugh again, but she also layered the melody with deeper, more contemplative notes that spoke of her life experiences. The music was a reflection of her journey, full of small victories, quiet struggles, and the determination to continue despite obstacles. The audience in the room, though small, felt the depth and authenticity of her expression. There was no pretense, no attempt to impress artificially, just genuine skill, heart, and presence. The room's atmosphere shifted completely. What had started as anticipation turned into admiration, respect, and wonder. The mansion, usually a place of order and formality, seemed to breathe with the music. The staff and the millionaire alike felt the change, caught in the human and emotional resonance of her performance. The laughter that had been expected was still there, but it was now laughter that came from delight and appreciation rather than ridicule. The housekeeper had managed to create something rare, a moment that was both joyful and meaningful. As she approached the final section of her performance, she introduced a gentle, playful cadence that combined both humor and skill. The millionaire laughed more freely now, completely taken by surprise. He had thought he would control the mood, but instead, he was being led by her music, carried along by its twists and turns. Every note was precise yet infused with warmth, making it impossible not to respond emotionally. The staff watched silently, sensing that this moment would be remembered long after the final note faded. When she finally lifted her hands from the piano, there was a pause. The room was quiet, not out of tension, but in awe. The echoes of the music lingered, filling the space with a lingering warmth. The millionaire, still seated, could only stare for a moment, his expression a mixture of amazement and delight. He had expected entertainment, but he had received something far greater. A demonstration of heart, talent, and authenticity that could not be bought or commanded. The housekeeper gave a small, polite bow, her face calm and serene. She had not played to impress, and yet she had done just that, leaving everyone present captivated. The millionaire's smile widened as he finally found his voice, expressing his admiration with genuine sincerity. He realized that the housekeeper had achieved what he had not anticipated. She had turned a simple challenge into an unforgettable experience, showing that true skill and passion could leave even the wealthiest and most powerful person speechless. The staff quietly returned to their duties, inspired by what they had witnessed. They recognized that the housekeeper's talent was not just about technical ability, but about courage, expression, and the willingness to share a part of herself with the world. The mansion, usually filled with routine and formality, had been transformed by this performance. It had become a space of connection, joy, and unexpected learning, where the human spirit shone through in the simplest yet most profound way. The housekeeper herself returned to her chores, moving with quiet confidence and grace. She felt satisfaction, not from praise or recognition, but from the knowledge that she had stayed true to herself and shared her gift fully. She had created a memory that would linger in the mansion, a moment of laughter, wonder, and admiration that could never be taken away. The millionaire, once ready to mock, now sat in quiet reflection, understanding that talent and authenticity could surprise and humble even the most confident person. The housekeeper's fingers danced lightly over the piano keys, and with each note, the room seemed to come alive. The music was a mixture of humor, elegance, and warmth, weaving a story that no one had expected. The millionaire, still seated comfortably in his chair, leaned forward, completely captivated. He had thought he would be amused by mistakes or awkward attempts, but what he witnessed was something far beyond his imagination. It was mastery, coupled with a genuine sense of joy and expression. The staff who had gathered quietly around the room were equally mesmerized. Some had known she was quiet, composed, and skilled in her duties, but her musical talent had remained a mystery until now. They watched, spellbound, as she played melodies that were playful yet sophisticated, simple yet profound. Every note carried intention, every pause added meaning. The housekeeper was not just performing music. She was telling a story, and the story unfolded with each press of the keys. The millionaire's usual sense of control and superiority was replaced by curiosity and amazement. He realized that this was not just entertainment. This was a genuine expression of creativity and emotion. He had always valued talent, but he had never truly expected to be surprised in this way. The laughter that escaped him was not mockery but delight. Each playful twist in the music drew a smile, each unexpected chord provoked a chuckle, and he found himself laughing freely, without restraint, fully immersed in the moment. The housekeeper's performance was deliberate and natural. She moved seamlessly between playful riffs and deep, expressive melodies. There was a cleverness in the music that suggested a subtle sense of humor, but it was never forced or exaggerated. It felt authentic, as if the music itself carried a personality that mirrored her own. The millionaire, for the first time, saw that talent could come from unexpected places, that true skill was not always displayed for recognition but could exist quietly, waiting for the right moment to shine. The atmosphere in the mansion shifted completely. The grandeur and formality of the rooms faded into the background, replaced by the warmth and human connection that music can create. The staff felt the change too, their previous curiosity and expectation giving way to admiration and awe. They were witnessing a moment of artistry and emotional resonance that transcended social status, wealth, and expectation. The housekeeper, with her humble demeanor and quiet confidence, had become the center of attention, not by seeking it but by sharing her gift freely. As the melody progressed, she began to experiment with variations, adding subtle improvisations that highlighted her creativity and understanding of the instrument. She played with timing, dynamics, and rhythm, making the music unpredictable yet cohesive. The millionaire's laughter grew more genuine, mingled with awe and delight. He was no longer the one in control. He was a listener, a participant in the experience, carried along by the music's charm and intelligence. The housekeeper's hands moved effortlessly across the keys, conveying emotion through every note. There was humor in the music, but it was clever and gentle, never forced. There were moments of reflection and tenderness, where the melody slowed and softened, drawing the listeners in and evoking a quiet, emotional response. The music was alive, as if telling a story of life itself. Its joys, its struggles, its small victories, and its quiet triumphs. The millionaire felt a sense of connection, as though he were glimpsing a piece of her life, her experiences, and her inner world. The staff observed with silent admiration. They were not merely watching a performance. They were witnessing a transformation in the room. The housekeeper had taken what could have been a simple, trivial task and turned it into an unforgettable experience. The laughter and delight were accompanied by respect and recognition for her talent and composure. The mansion, usually a place of routines and protocols, had been temporarily transformed into a space of wonder and shared emotion, where social hierarchies faded and human skill shone. The millionaire could hardly believe what he was seeing. He had underestimated her entirely, expecting amusement at her expense. Instead, he found himself humbled and inspired. The housekeeper's performance reminded him that talent could be quiet, unassuming, and deeply impactful. It also reminded him that true joy often came from unexpected sources, from moments that were authentic and heartfelt rather than orchestrated or staged. As she continued to play, the music became more playful, yet it retained its sophistication. The melodies wove in and out, creating tension and release, surprise and delight. The millionaire laughed freely, enjoying the cleverness and creativity, while also appreciating the depth and precision of her performance. The housekeeper's music was not just notes on a page. It was a conversation, a story, and a reflection of her heart. It captivated everyone in the room, creating a shared experience that was both entertaining and moving. The housekeeper's attention never wavered. Her focus was on the music, on the expression, and on the feeling she wanted to convey. She played with confidence, grace, and a quiet strength that left everyone watching in awe. The millionaire, usually impatient and demanding, found himself completely absorbed. He realized that this was not merely a performance. It was a gift, a demonstration of skill, creativity, and heart. He felt grateful to witness it, and a sense of humility washed over him. The staff, inspired by what they were witnessing, began to see her in a new light. She was more than a housekeeper. She was an artist, a storyteller, and a person of remarkable talent and character. The laughter, smiles, and quiet admiration in the room were proof of the impact she had made. She had turned an ordinary evening in a mansion into an extraordinary experience, reminding everyone present of the power of genuine expression and skill. As the music reached its peak, the housekeeper skillfully blended humor, elegance, and emotion, creating a complex yet accessible melody that left everyone in awe. The millionaire laughed, clapped, and finally leaned back, completely spellbound. The staff exchanged quiet, excited glances, knowing they had witnessed something rare and special. The housekeeper had taken a simple challenge and turned it into a moment that would be remembered for a long time. When she finally finished, the room fell silent for a heartbeat. The music lingered, echoing softly against the walls, leaving a warm, lasting impression. The millionaire looked at her, speechless for a moment, realizing that he had been thoroughly enchanted. The housekeeper had exceeded all expectations, transforming a simple request into an extraordinary display of talent, creativity, and heart. The staff quietly returned to their duties, carrying with them the memory of the performance and the deep respect it had earned. The housekeeper herself remained calm, composed, and humble. She had not sought recognition or praise, yet she had earned it effortlessly. The experience reminded everyone in the mansion, from the millionaire to the staff, that true talent and genuine expression could create moments that were unforgettable, bridging gaps between social status, wealth, and expectation. It was a quiet victory, a reminder that skill, heart, and authenticity were always recognized in the end, no matter where they came from. After the housekeeper's performance, the mansion seemed transformed. The echoes of the piano lingered in every corner, creating a warmth and energy that hadn't been there before. The millionaire sat in his chair, leaning back slowly, taking in the moment. He had expected something entertaining, perhaps clumsy or amusing, but he had received something far beyond that. Something genuine, moving, and completely unexpected. He realized that he had underestimated the housekeeper entirely. He looked at her carefully, studying the quiet confidence in her posture, the calm yet expressive face, and the subtle humility that accompanied her skill. There was no arrogance in her demeanor, no desire to show off. She had played not for recognition or praise, but because it was an expression of herself, a natural reflection of her passion and talent. The millionaire's usual sense of control felt foreign in this moment. He had thought he could dictate the entertainment, but now he was a witness to something much greater than he could have planned. The staff, who had been quietly observing, whispered softly among themselves. They had always known she was capable in her duties, but her musical talent was a revelation. They exchanged glances filled with admiration, realizing that they had witnessed a truly rare display of skill. Some of them had seen performers before, but the way the housekeeper played with both humor and depth, combining elegance with playfulness, was unlike anything they had experienced. It left an impression that was both joyful and profound. The millionaire's mind raced as he reflected on the performance. He had always believed that wealth and status brought superiority and command over situations, but he had learned something important. Talent and authenticity could not be bought or commanded. They emerged naturally from those who had nurtured them quietly and passionately. The housekeeper had reminded him that true skill and heart were powerful, often more impactful than wealth or influence. In that moment, he felt a humbling sense of respect, acknowledging that this quiet, unassuming person had touched him in a way few ever could. He rose from his chair slowly, feeling the need to express his admiration. The staff looked on silently, sensing that something significant was unfolding. The millionaire walked toward the housekeeper, who remained composed, waiting patiently, yet there was a subtle tension in the air. He paused, searching for words that could convey the combination of surprise, admiration, and delight he felt. I did not expect this," he said finally, his voice soft, almost in awe. "You have a talent that is extraordinary. I thought I would hear something amusing, but instead, I have been enchanted." The housekeeper nodded politely, acknowledging the compliment without arrogance. Her calm demeanor contrasted with the intensity of the moment, emphasizing that her performance had been sincere, not performed for recognition. The millionaire continued, struggling to put his feelings into words. I have seen many performances, but never one like this. Your music is clever, heartfelt, and full of life. You have a gift that should not remain hidden. For the staff, witnessing this exchange was inspiring. They had always respected her for her work ethic, but now they saw her in an entirely new light. She had the ability to transform a room, to bring joy, laughter, and admiration, all through something she loved deeply. They realized that skill, confidence, and heart combined in her in a way that few people ever achieved. It was a reminder to them that talent could exist quietly, waiting for the right moment to shine. The millionaire, still standing, felt a sense of humility he had rarely experienced. He had always believed that wealth and status gave him authority, yet here he was, speechless and grateful for a lesson he hadn't anticipated. He had expected entertainment. He had received inspiration. He understood now that talent and authenticity were far more powerful than any display of wealth or control. The housekeeper had reminded him that genuine skill and passion could surpass expectations and captivate even the most confident individuals. He continued, his voice filled with sincerity. I want you to know that your music has left a mark. It is clever, joyful, and deeply moving. I would be honored if you would consider sharing it more often. Perhaps you could teach, perform, or even guide others. You have a rare gift, and it should be celebrated. The housekeeper remained humble, acknowledging his words with a quiet nod. She did not seek recognition, yet she understood the significance of his praise. For the millionaire, this was a rare moment of clarity and gratitude. He had been reminded that human talent, skill, and heart were treasures that could not be measured by wealth alone. The housekeeper had brought laughter, admiration, and respect into the room, proving that true talent could surprise and humble even the most confident person. The staff quietly returned to their duties, carrying the energy of the performance with them. The mansion, usually a place of structured routine and formality, had been filled with warmth, laughter, and admiration. They had witnessed a rare moment, one that would be remembered for a long time. The housekeeper's performance had not only entertained but had taught a lesson about authenticity, passion, and the power of genuine expression. The millionaire sat back in his chair, reflecting on what had happened. He realized that he had been ready to laugh at her attempts, to expect amusement rather than admiration. Instead, he had been captivated, humbled, and inspired. The experience reminded him that true talent often emerges quietly, from those who have nurtured it with dedication and heart. It was a lesson in humility, in recognition, and in the understanding that some gifts are priceless and cannot be measured by wealth or status. The housekeeper returned to her duties with quiet confidence. She felt satisfaction not from recognition but from having shared a part of herself in the most genuine way. She had transformed an ordinary evening into an extraordinary experience, leaving a lasting impression on the millionaire, the staff, and the mansion itself. Her performance had bridged gaps between social status, wealth, and expectation, creating a moment of connection and admiration that would endure. The millionaire, now fully aware of her talent and composure, felt a growing respect that went beyond mere admiration for her musical ability. He saw her as a person of depth, character, and skill, someone who could teach lessons about patience, passion, and authenticity simply through the way she expressed herself. It was a humbling realization that true greatness often lies in quiet strength, dedication, and the courage to be oneself. As the evening continued, the mansion seemed lighter, filled with an invisible energy that had been absent before. The laughter, admiration, and warmth from the performance lingered in the air. The staff moved with renewed appreciation for the housekeeper, inspired by her ability to captivate and move others. The millionaire reflected quietly, understanding that this moment would remain with him, a reminder of the unexpected ways in which talent and heart can reveal themselves. The housekeeper's impact was not just in the music she played, but in the way she carried herself, calm, confident, and authentic. She had turned a simple challenge into an unforgettable experience, proving that genuine skill and passion could leave a lasting impression, regardless of status or expectation. The mansion, with all its grandeur and wealth, had been transformed by a single performance, a reminder that human talent, dedication, and heart are treasures that shine brightest when shared sincerely. The evening slowly moved on, but the atmosphere in the mansion remained filled with warmth and quiet energy. The housekeeper had returned to her duties, moving through the rooms with the same calm efficiency she always displayed. Yet now there was a subtle difference in the way others looked at her. The staff exchanged knowing glances, impressed not only by her musical talent, but also by the way she carried herself with humility and grace. The millionaire, who had been deeply affected by her performance, remained seated in the living room, reflecting on the events of the night and the lessons he had learned. He realized that the laughter and enjoyment he had sought were only a small part of what the experience had given him. The housekeeper had not only entertained him but also reminded him of something important about life: that talent and passion often exist quietly, waiting for the right moment to be revealed, and that true skill is not measured by recognition or status but by dedication and authenticity. He felt a profound respect for her, recognizing that her abilities were a reflection of her patience, her love for music, and her quiet determination throughout life. As he sat back in his chair, he considered how rare it was to encounter someone who could surprise him in this way. He had always believed that wealth and influence gave him insight into people, but he realized that genuine talent and heart could not be predicted or controlled. The housekeeper had shown him a side of human potential he had seldom experienced, and he felt humbled and inspired by the revelation. The staff continued their work quietly, yet there was a renewed sense of admiration in their actions. They were aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a performance that combined humor, skill, and emotion in a way that left a lasting impression. The housekeeper, without seeking attention, had become the center of admiration, demonstrating that quiet strength and talent could command respect more powerfully than any wealth or status. The millionaire, now more reflective, approached the housekeeper with a new perspective. He wanted to acknowledge her not just for the performance, but for the integrity, humility, and grace she had shown throughout the evening. "Your performance tonight," he said softly, "was more than music. It was a lesson in patience, dedication, and authenticity. You have reminded me that true talent often appears quietly, and that the most meaningful gifts cannot be forced or bought." The housekeeper nodded, her calm demeanor unchanged. She did not seek praise, and yet she understood the significance of his words. For the first time, the millionaire saw her not just as an employee or a servant, but as a person of depth and character. He realized that her impact extended beyond music. She had the ability to inspire, teach, and change perspectives simply through her actions and her approach to life. The evening continued, with a quiet sense of reflection settling over the mansion. The millionaire considered ways to honor and support her talent without making her feel uncomfortable or drawing unnecessary attention. He thought about offering her opportunities to share her music more widely, perhaps teaching others or performing on special occasions. But he also recognized that the most important aspect was her choice, her freedom to decide how and when to share her gift. He finally spoke again with genuine warmth. "I would like you to know that your talent is seen, and it is valued. I hope you will continue to share it, not because of any expectation, but because it brings joy and meaning both to yourself and to those fortunate enough to experience it." The housekeeper responded with a polite nod, acknowledging his words with quiet humility. She had never sought recognition, but she understood the sincerity behind his statements. She had been true to herself, and now that authenticity was being acknowledged, not through fanfare, but through genuine respect and understanding. The millionaire returned to his chair, taking a moment to reflect on the evening as a whole. He realized that he had been reminded of the importance of openness, humility, and appreciation for talent in all its forms. The laughter, the joy, and the admiration he had experienced were gifts, but the deeper lesson had been in recognizing and valuing authenticity and dedication wherever it might be found. The staff continued their duties, yet they moved with a renewed sense of purpose and inspiration. They had witnessed the quiet power of genuine talent and the impact it could have on people from all walks of life. They realized that every individual in the mansion, regardless of their role, had the potential to create moments of beauty, joy, and meaning if given the opportunity and respect they deserved. The housekeeper moved through the rooms with calm efficiency, her presence now carrying an unspoken respect. She did not boast, she did not seek acknowledgement, yet her actions and her music had spoken volumes. The millionaire and the staff alike were reminded that the greatest gifts often came in unexpected forms and from the most unassuming places. In the days that followed, the mansion retained a subtle change in its energy. The laughter and warmth from the performance lingered, and there was a renewed sense of connection between the people who worked there. The housekeeper continued her duties with the same calm focus. Yet now there was a sense of mutual respect and understanding that had not existed before. The millionaire occasionally listened quietly as she played, not out of expectation, but out of appreciation and admiration for the skill and heart she demonstrated. The housekeeper's impact was lasting, not only in her musical talent but in the way she reminded everyone in the mansion of the value of authenticity, humility, and dedication. She had created a moment that transcended hierarchy, wealth, and expectation, teaching a quiet lesson about respect, recognition, and the human spirit. Her music had become more than notes on a page. It was a bridge that connected people, opened hearts, and inspired those fortunate enough to experience it. The millionaire often reflected on the evening, realizing that he had learned something he had not anticipated. True talent, when paired with humility and dedication, had the power to transform not just a room, but the way people thought and felt. He had come expecting amusement and had received inspiration, admiration, and a reminder of the extraordinary impact of genuine skill and heart. The housekeeper, in turn, continued her life in the mansion with calm dignity and quiet joy. She understood that her talent had touched others deeply, yet she remained grounded, focused on her duties and the music she loved. She had proven that authenticity, skill, and a humble heart could create moments that left a lasting impression, moments that could bring laughter, respect, and admiration in equal measure. The story of that evening became quietly remembered within the mansion, not as a tale of extravagance or showmanship, but as a testament to the quiet power of genuine talent, dedication, and heart. It reminded everyone who witnessed it that true greatness often appears unexpectedly, and that respect, recognition, and admiration are most meaningful when they arise naturally, from the authenticity of one's actions and the integrity of one's spirit. In the end, the housekeeper had done more than play the piano. She had transformed the expectations of those around her, leaving them inspired, humbled, and grateful. Her music, her presence, and her humility had created a lasting impression, proving that talent combined with authenticity and heart could leave even the most confident person speechless, and in its quiet way, change a place and the people in it forever.